Why is our world so often ripped apart by things like civil war and genocide? We tend to think of these as horrible exceptions to the rule. But what if they're not? What if they're actually a feature, not a bug, of the very way we've built our modern world? Let's dig into that, because we're going to unpack a really challenging idea, that the nation-state itself has a violent flaw baked right into its DNA. For the nation to live, the tribe must die. Wow, that's a really intense thing to say, right? But this quote from Mozambican revolutionary Samora Machel just perfectly captures a certain brutal logic. It suggests that to build one single unified nation, any other identity that gets in the way, whether it's political, ethnic, or cultural, it just has to be destroyed. And this isn't some abstract metaphor. It's been a literal blueprint for action all over the world. So that brings us right to the heart of it, our big question for today. Why is building a nation so often a bloody, violent business? Well, according to the source material we're looking at, the answer isn't just about a few bad leaders or some ancient hatreds bubbling up. Nope, it's about a very specific political project, one that got started centuries ago and is still shaping our world right now. Okay, so to really get this, we have to look at how the modern state actually creates political identities. It's not a natural process. It's a process of division. It's a machine for intentionally creating a majority and a minority, a settler and a native. And these aren't just cultural labels. They're permanent political boxes. This whole process has a name, political modernity. And it's basically this idea that to be a proper modern state, you've got to have one single, uniform national people. And to get there, society gets sliced in two. One group is labeled the civilized, rightful owner of the state. That's the nation. And then, well, everyone else is defined as uncivilized, an obstacle that has to be either managed or just plain removed. Now check this out, because this is where it really clicks. You can see this artificial split laid out so clearly. On one side, you have the nation, the settler. They are set up by design to be the political majority. The whole state is built for them to serve them. But that means on the other side, you have the minority, the native. And by definition, they become permanent political outsiders. They're not just another group with less power. They're framed as a problem that the state needs to solve, whether that's through assimilation, containment, or, even elimination. And listen, this isn't just some abstract theory from a book. This exact framework has been copied and pasted all over the world, and the results have been absolutely devastating. Let's just look at a few examples from history that really show this pattern in action. The United States is actually presented here as a kind of trailblazer. Think about it. The project of westward expansion meant the land had to be cleared of the people already living there. And Indian reservations weren't just pieces of land, they were tools of control. The source argues they actually served as a prototype for what came later, the South African reserve system, and unbelievably, for the Nazi concentration camp, places designed for internment and slow death. And here's where it gets absolutely chilling. The source makes it crystal clear that Adolf Hitler didn't just come up with his ideas in a vacuum. He carefully studied the U.S. government's policies toward Native Americans, the American experience with genocide and ethnic cleansing, and how it was almost celebrated in the U.S., made those ideas, it made them thinkable for the Nazis as they started their own horrifying project of nation building. We see the same pattern popping up in South Africa too. Apartheid was a response to a crisis for the ruling power. As Black South Africans organized for their rights and moved to cities, the state's solution was to re-tribalize them. They literally invented these artificial tribal homelands called Bantustans, and then declared that all Black workers in the cities were just temporary migrants. Their real home was supposedly in these segregated territories, which was a way to keep them as a permanent, controllable minority. So after these unbelievable atrocities happen, we try to deliver justice. But it feels like it so often fails to stop the next cycle of violence. Why is that? The problem might actually be in the kind of justice we're chasing. I mean, let's take the most famous example we have, the Nuremberg trials. They did an incredible thing by holding individual Nazi leaders accountable for their monstrous crimes. But by focusing only on the individual bad guys, what huge piece of the puzzle did those trials miss? Okay, this distinction is absolutely crucial. Criminal justice asks who did it, and its goal is to punish those individuals. That's totally necessary, but it's not the whole story. Political justice asks a much deeper question. Why did it happen?
Its focus is on reforming the political system itself, that nation-state structure that made the violence possible to begin with. You see the difference? One model punishes the actors, but the other wants to rewrite the entire play.
And because of this, the Nuremberg model had some pretty massive blind spots. First, it completely ignored that Nazism was, at its heart, just another nation-building project that was following a global political playbook. And this was really convenient because it protected the victorious allies who were busy carrying out their own ethnic cleansing across Europe after the war. By framing the whole thing as a simple criminal issue, they all got to avoid taking a hard look at the political system they all shared.
So if criminal justice isn't enough, what's the alternative? The source material we're looking at proposes something pretty radical, a total rethinking of justice, one that aims to decolonize the political community itself.
The goal here is a huge shift in perspective. It's not just about getting justice for victims, even though that's essential. It's about breaking the entire cycle. It means we have to reform the political institutions that are constantly dividing society into these permanent majorities and minorities. The very system that keeps producing new victims and new perpetrators over and over again.
And this path forward has 3 key steps. First, we have to reframe everyone, victim, perpetrator, beneficiary, bystander, as a survivor of a toxic political system. That allows former enemies to become adversaries who can actually sit down and negotiate. Second, we shift the blame away from just individuals and onto the institutions that made their actions possible. And third, and this is the big one, we have to denaturalize political identity. That means we challenge the fundamental idea that a state has to belong to a single nation, to one permanent majority.
And all of that leaves us with a final, really profound question. If we move beyond this nation-state model that has defined our world and caused so much pain, what comes next? What does a state that truly belongs to all of its citizens, not just to one dominant group, what does that actually look like? That right there is the challenge for our future.